Hi there, everyone. So it is cold in Melbourne today. We are supposed to be in spring. What's going on? Suddenly back in winter. Winter has come, and it seems like winter is coming again, in the famous words of Game of Thrones. Anyway, today I want to talk about job search mistakes. So, markets go through volatile cycles all the time, even when we're not in pandemics or in a global financial crisis. The job market does tend to go through kind of up and down cycles. And we did see a very big dip in 2008 when we went through that global financial crisis. And of course, we're seeing, a dip in the job market at the moment because many jobs have been lost around the world. But while that is happening, there's always, so often, when there are clouds, there's always silver lining because over the last couple of months, there's certainly been an increase in job hiring again. So I attend industry events, industry webinars regularly because I like to stay abreast of what's going on. And one of the industry events I attended last week was saying, or sharing some research showing that within the Australian job market, especially in the technology industries, but other industries as well, there was a bit of a rise happening again. It had risen by about 7% from sort of the April-May months across the June, July, and August months. So that's, something wonderful, something to look forward to. And as I said, job markets do go in cycles. But I want to talk about some job search mistakes. So I think it was about 18 months ago, I had a client come to me and he had applied. He was applying at the time about 10 to 15 applications a day he was sending out 6 days a week. So, I mean, I'm not that fabulous at maths, but if you do the maths, it's about anywhere sort of 60 to 75, maybe even 80 applications a week he was doing for months on end, and he wasn't getting any traction. So he had come to me, he was referred to me by a friend of his who had worked with me previously. And, his frustration was, I'm sending out these job applications every day, every single day, for 6 days a week. He didn't do it on Sundays. He says, I'm not getting anywhere. No one's even responding to me. So we worked through some of his tactics. First of all, I got him to send the resume and the cover letter, all of those things that he'd been using. And one of the first things I determined was that he was only applying for jobs that he was skilled in. So he was a developer, and he had a lot of heavy tech jargon on his resume, and he was only really applying for those kinds of roles. So, you really do narrow your chances when you're applying for very job-specific roles where you focused on more of the specific job skills, the technical skills or job skills, and you're not focused on the transferable skills. So in most organizations, people are always looking for those beautiful transferable skills like leadership, time management, problem solving, written communication, verbal communication, team mentoring, coaching, motivational skills, interpersonal skills, all of those. When you focus so much on the tech skills, and you're using all this tech jargon and the programs that you use to develop, and you're not actually addressing how you solve problems, and you're not giving examples that are more slanted towards that transferable type of skill. So problem solving is not only required in the tech industry, it's required pretty much in every industry. Customer service industry, hospitality, any of those. And yeah, you might not be interested in applying for hospitality or anything like that. But the point is that when you focus on the transferable part of your skills that you can go across and use demonstrations of solving problems and how you solve those problems, or on how you motivated a team that was perhaps slumping or feeling demotivated or kind of just going through the grind. Even if you're a techo and you've done those kinds of motivation or inspiration or upliftment, those are transferable skills. And when you start including those on your resume, or start writing your resume with a very strong slant on transferable skills, chances are people are going to view your resume differently, because what they're going to see is that there's someone who, whilst they've got the tech skills and the tech jargon, they've also got these other important people skills, these other important transferable skills that can be used in other parts of an organization. So very important to look at not only applying for jobs you specifically qualified for, but enhancing or slanting your resume so that it includes transferable skills so you can broaden your application. The other thing I noticed was he had taken that conventional way of approaching the application. So he was pretty much sending out the same resume and the same cover letter to every job. He would change, obviously, the company of the cover letter, whoever he was addressing at the company, but he pretty much was sending out the same cover letter and the same resume to these, 10 to 15 jobs he was applying for each day. Now, when you do that, what it means is that you are not going to cover off the specific selection criteria, because every job ad is written with different selection criteria. And if you're going to send out a generic cover letter and a generic resume, you are going to miss covering off some of those important selection criteria. So that is, a no-no. It is a big mistake to make in your job search, and you aren't going to get the responses that you want. There's absolutely no way you're going to get the responses you want when you're doing generic resumes and one generic cover letter. You are never going to end up covering off the specific things that that particular job ad from that particular company has asked you to cover off. The other mistake, he didn't have his LinkedIn included on his resume. And when I did go and look at the LinkedIn profile, it was slim. So he probably had, I think he had under 100 connections at the time. So that indicates already to a potential hiring employer that you aren't in the business of networking, that you're not proactively networking because your connections are small. The other thing, when you have a slim LinkedIn profile, that means he hadn't even used the about section, so there was no professional narrative. And it simply had, the time he started the role, the time he ended a role, and what the role title was. That was it. So nothing to show any kind of story, any kind of achievement, any kind of professional narrative. So first mistake is not having the LinkedIn link on the resume. So people who hire expect to see a link to your LinkedIn. Why? Because LinkedIn is the professional networking space. And how it's perceived when you don't have a strong LinkedIn profile, or if you don't bother to include it on your resume, how it is perceived is this. People perceive that you are blasé about your career, that you can't be bothered using that free professional real estate to show a strong narrative about your professional life. And so, it leaves a question mark. How serious are you about your career? Now, if you aren't going to use something that can have a potential employer or recruiter have a view of you, a story view of you, of how you've operated, how you've achieved, how you've succeeded, you don't use what's there for you to use to sell yourself on that particular social platform or professional platform, it does beg the question, how serious are you about your career, and how serious are you about growing your career? And then he was also limiting his search to the digital world. So what I mean by that was he was finding, the job ads on Seek, on LinkedIn, and only applying directly through those avenues. Now, the statistics in Australia shows that over 50% of jobs live in the hidden job market. And what I mean by that is that over 50% of jobs are not advertised online. Over 50% of jobs in companies are filled through networking, through people referring other people, through people referring family, friends, other ex-colleagues, whatever. In the US, it's over 50%. It's about 80% of the roles in the US live in the hidden job market, in that area where it's not even advertised online, where most of those roles are filled through networks. So this guy was applying for everything through the digital space, forgetting about that untapped or that hidden job market. And yeah, I guess it's a little bit nerve-wracking to do that, because what it means is that you have to make connections. You've actually got to start positioning yourself to connect with people in those companies. But, you can kill two birds with one stone. You can build your LinkedIn profile by increasing your connections. And you can build your connections and build your relationships by building those connections as well. So, you rank up better when you've got better connections. When you reach that 500 plus mark on LinkedIn, ranks you up better, but you also end up having that opportunity to build connections with people. Now, obviously, there's a way to do it. It's always about coming at a connection with the value you can offer, or being genuinely interested in what a person is doing. And one of the easiest ways to build connections is to simply study profiles, find things you have in common, and then reach out to people with a question. So, for example, if you were wanting to go for a project management role around, say, metro trains, and you see in someone's profile that they've worked on railway or rail projects, you could reach out with a question that says, hey, Bob, I see that you worked on a fabulous rail project for so many months, and I'm wondering if I could pick your brains about, that experience. What kinds of things would one need to be aware of when you're managing that kind of project? Something along those lines. Anything. Find things in common. Sometimes people list their hobbies or the books that they're interested in or the people that they follow. If someone follows Bill Gates, for example, you could go, hey, I see you're a follower of the Microsoft or the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And, I'm just wondering what you think of their philanthropy in the world. Whatever it is, build the connections, build the relationships. And so if a role comes up in the company, by the time, you get ready to position for a role, you can even ask the person, hey, I noticed there was a role, at Microsoft, and I'm wondering if you could shed any light on what it's like working there. Don't ask them to put you forward for the role. Don't ask them to put your resume forward. Ask them questions like, what is it like working there? Because that's how you open the conversation. And that's how people then step forward, often naturally. Most human beings want to help. I think it's our natural instinct to want to help and assist. And so, but when you come at it in a sleazy way, where you simply ask before you even establish a relationship or a decent connection, that is going to come across as sleazy and slimy, and people aren't going to respond very well to that. But nevertheless, after we went through some of these mistakes, like looking at revamping the resume to focus on transferable skills, to focus strongly on achievements, We revamped this guy's LinkedIn profile, and I gave him the scripts on how to build connections and how to ask for recommendations on LinkedIn. We, started expanding the network and even talking to friends and family. I got him to make a list of friends, family, ex-colleagues, and the companies they worked at, and then figure out which company appealed to him, or if there were, say, 5 or 10 companies that appealed to him, and talk to those people in his life about perhaps getting an opportunity to work there. And then obviously stepping away from only the digital applications, building the connections, building relationships with people, asking them, being curious, all of these things. And within about, I think it was 3 months it took, but having said that, it was solid, consistent working. He was solidly and consistently reaching out. He landed a role from someone finding him on LinkedIn. His LinkedIn profile had been uplifted. It shared his professional story. It showed some of his achievements. All of those things had all the transferable skills. Got a reach out from LinkedIn, asked for his resume. The resume had been revamped. The cover letter had been revamped. And he landed an interview and got the role. And he's still working there and happy. But, it took him about 3 months of solid and consistent changing from those mistakes he was making to landing the role. But previously he had been out of work for, I think it was about 8 or 9 months when he had come to me for some guidance. So, just change things up a bit. If something is not working for you, especially if you're going down those old conventional ways of applying for jobs, switch it up, change things up, and use some of the tips and tricks in this video. And wishing you all the best in moving forward with your job searches, especially in these challenging times. Have a great day. Bye.